Thanks. So welcome everyone to the Buddhist Path of Awakening course. We are working our way through Shambhala, the Sacred Path of the Warrior, the book by Trungpa Rinpoche. And we are on chapters 13 and 14 tonight, all about Drala, the magic of Drala. So I'm going to start with the first chapter, entitled How to Invoke Magic, and talk about this a bit. And you'll see as we go along why I'm wearing a coat and with a pin, and we'll get to that. So, he says about the phenomenal world, the world of all these phenomena, sights, sounds, smells, tastes, bodily sensations, and mental events, all the phenomena, 6 kinds, Nangwa in Tibetan, all arising and passing away in the moment. We may think that things endure, but it's precisely that. We think that things endure, because what we experience now is a constant, ever-changing display as this moves across, as your attention shifts, as the words come out, as now you feel the sensation of the bottom, your bottom on the chair, as I mentioned it, and all of these things, thoughts come and go. A constant and ever-changing display, which he calls fickle and merciless. And he says it is questionable who is in control, you or the world. And in fact, as we go through this, there is so much happening, an infinite amount of events and details, and we just focus on a few. Like right now, you're listening to these words and this, viewing this image on the screen. Meanwhile, there's what's going on all around you in your house. Tons of things. And so it's questionable who is in control. You, with your thoughts about what you're doing, or the world, which is constantly churning up new stuff and dissolving it. The more you struggle to get control, he says, the more speed and aggression you produce to overcome your obstacles, and the more you become subject to the phenomenal world. Speed and aggression go together. The absence of speed is just simple awareness, right here. Calm, peaceful, awake. Speed means we're thinking. We're thinking about what's next. What do I need to do? What happened? What was in the past? Where is my anxiety leading me? That's the speed. He called it neurotic speed. That keeps pushing us forward as though we were on a treadmill, with our feet constantly moving underneath us, because we're afraid that if we stop, even for a second, we'll fall over. And of course, meditation practice is the process of stopping. We just come present now and cut that neurotic speed. The real challenge to transcend duality altogether, this is the real challenge, to contact energy that is beyond dualism, beyond I and other. That's where the speed lies. You see, the speed always is about I and other, manipulating the relationship between the two, for me, against me, neutral. So the real challenge is to transcend this. He says that you begin to discover energy in the world that is neither for you nor against you. That energy is the energy of Drala. It's the fundamental energy of this world. And it has nothing to do with I, me. And it is beautifully magical. Why? Because it arises spontaneously. And once we begin to see it, once we begin to come back from our neurotic dreams, it is so vivid and beautiful and meaningful Drala isn't a god or spirit, he says. Fundamentally, it is connecting with the wisdom of your own being, with the power of things as they are, not as we hope or fear them to be, not as we try to understand them to be, simply as they are right now, arising here and now. If you can do this, you can discover magic in everything. This is a secret world. It's only secret because we're so lost in our dreams. And the process of meditation, this path that we're on, is rediscovering this world of beauty, magic, and meaning. He says, this world of magic in everything. And then I wrote, which you hadn't even been remotely aware of, because we were so lost in the world of worry. How much money am I going to make? And, who is my partner? And am I alone? And am I getting old? And am I sick? And all these things. And the real point of this path is to discover that world of magic and begin to live in it and die in it. What allows you to make that connection? To discover magic, like looking up at the sun in the sky. It's that simple. It's energy beyond aggression. And the only way to contact that energy is to experience a gentle state of being in yourself. This is what allows you to contact this fundamental magic of reality. There has to be gentleness and openness in each of us. And this is what is cultivated by the practice of meditation. This gentleness, we just come back, we're just simply here. There's tremendous generosity in that, lack of manipulation, and openness, open to whatever is happening to arise. Otherwise, there is no way to recognize the energy of non-aggression, the energy of Drala in the world, this magical, meaningful energy. We need gentleness and openness, which is almost saying the same thing as meditation. It's certainly two aspects of it. The setting sun world, the opposite of Shambhala world, is based on fear of oneself. You don't trust yourself. There's a fundamental insecurity. There's a fundamental worry about how well am I? How am I doing? And also fear of death, of things going wrong. Death really means things going the way you don't want them to go. And it has no connection to the Drala principle. It's a totally different world, this world of setting sun, of fear, lack of self-confidence, fear of things happening that you don't want to happen, imagine you don't want to happen. He says, there's a quote, the cowardice and aggression of the setting sun outlook actually dispel any magical possibilities, any possibilities of experiencing the genuine and brilliant qualities of reality. This, by the way, is where art lies. It's in this appreciation of these genuine, brilliant, magical qualities of reality. And when we worry about ourselves, when we attack ourselves, when we're afraid of death, which really means afraid of anything that we don't want, we dispel any possibility of contacting this magical world and of living with art. The opposite of this is to manifest Great Eastern Sun. Great Eastern Sun is like a rubric, so it's like a symbol for this state of mind that is constantly awake, aware, seeing the beauty of this world as it arises by itself. I mean, do we make this happen? It's magical that it happens at all. But we usually don't appreciate it because we're so lost in our neurotic worries. So the opposite is to manifest Great Eastern Sun, the expression of human goodness, which is actually what we are. Isn't that ironic? That it's truly what we are, this human goodness. It's not based on arrogance or aggression, but on gentleness and openness. And it's not based on fear. This is the bravery of the warrior. It's simply being present, confident of one's own awareness right now, here. And it doesn't even really belong to one. It's atmospheric. It's everywhere, that awareness and that confidence. He says it is the way of the warrior. So the essence of this path is transcending cowardice and manifesting bravery. That is the best and only way to invoke Drala, to invoke this magic and beauty and meaning of the world that speaks to us, that can speak to us when we tune into it. All of us have felt it from time to time. It's a matter of really beginning to live in it. But when we're moved by the beauty of a day or a scene or whatever it might be, what someone says, we're tuning into Drala. And then the fundamental aspect of bravery is being without deception, meaning self-deception, which is about doubting yourself so that you are cut off from the vision of the Great Eastern Sun. Isn't that ironic? That doubting yourself is a fundamental form of self-deception. Why? Because it removes you from the awareness of what's going on now. Instead, one is lost in self-attack, self-doubt, self-criticism, fear. And this is, he calls, self-deception. If there is the slightest deception, you will dispel Drala. You can't tune in. From that point of view, deception is the magic of the setting sun, he says. And magical it is, terribly so. The Shambhala understanding of bravery is the courage to be, to live in this world without deception and with tremendous kindness and caring for others. Because when we come back into this awareness, there's tremendous gentleness, and we can be inspired to care for others, to love others, and to want to help them. He says ordinarily magic is about conquering the elements and ignoring the natural laws like the law of gravity and so forth. But true magic is the magic of reality, as it is. The earth of earth, the water of water. He's going through the elements, the fire, earth, water, fire, wind, and space, the 5 elements. Communicating with the elements so that in some sense they become one with you. These magical elements, as we'll come to when we start to study the mandala. Each section of the Tantric Mandala, which is a depiction of reality, has an element associated with it. This magic brings out the brilliant and genuine qualities of your environment and your own being, which are already there. You can actually attract the power and strength of the primordial wisdom that arises from the cosmic mirror, so that the Drala principle is reflected in every activity of your life. This is a very different way to live. This is living in a world of appreciation of this world, of its magical arising and passing, of the way it communicates to us, its meaning. He says, you see that you can actually organize your life in such a way that you magnetize magic, or Drala, to manifest brilliance and elegance in your world, because Drala is elegant as well as beautiful. There are 3 ways to do this, to invoke Drala. The first, he calls it invoking external Drala. This is invoking magic in your physical environment, arranging your living space so that it isn't chaotic and messy, which repels Drala. Nor does it have to be expensive. Rather, it is creating harmony in your environment in order to encourage awareness and attention to detail. And when Trungpa Rinpoche was here in Boulder, he inspired people to beautify their homes. And people did, and more or less. He says the point is not to make a self-conscious statement about yourself, but to make your world available to others. And I think of people in our community who used to pay a lot of attention to their homes and the way they presented, not wanting to impress or overpower their guests, but wanting to please them, to pleasure them. He says, when you express gentleness and precision in your environment, then real brilliance and power can descend into that situation. If you try to manufacture that presence out of your own ego, like I'm going to have this beautiful house and then people will come and admire it and admire me, it won't happen. You cannot own the power and magic of this world. It is always available, but it doesn't belong to anyone. Really, we just share it, partake of it, give it to others. He talks about American Indians having accomplished this. Actually, in real life, he felt that the Indian culture had been in touch with Drala very much, and that it had lost contact with it to a large degree, not completely. And he actually made a point, Trungpa Rinpoche, of visiting some particular Native American individuals whom he felt expressed Drala, although he didn't put it that way. It was very early. There was a fellow, a shaman, down outside of Santa Fe that he was really quite taken with, a man named Little Joe. And there was another shaman up in the Northwest that he made a point of visiting. And he felt that the Indians, or the Native Americans, had been very in touch with Drala. And he was ashamed that so much of it had been lost, but not completely. He says, the idea of sacred space, the cathedral at Chartres, the English Houses of Parliament, churches built as sacred, can have a presence that is more than the structure of the buildings or the beauty of the materials used to construct them. An atmosphere you cannot help but feel. And he feels that the Greeks and Romans laid their cities out with an understanding of Drala. And I think of the Parthenon. My gosh, what an expression of Drala. It's so powerful. And there are so many others. The Colosseum in Rome. I don't know, we could go through, all of us could come up with things, architectural creations that express this magical beauty and dignity and celebration of human existence. He says, in summary, invoking Drala is connected with organizing your environment so that it becomes a sacred space. This begins with the organization of your personal household environment. And beyond that, it can include much larger environments, such as a city or even an entire country. The second Drala principle is called Invoking Internal Drala. In your body, you feel oneness in your body. All the parts hang together as a basically good human body. Your body has its own unity. Your sense perceptions work as a unit, one expression of basic goodness. You invoke the internal Drala through the relationship to your personal habits, how you handle dressing, eating, drinking, sleeping, clothing. So, as a demonstration, he always used to tell us, whenever you're teaching, you wear a coat and tie, period. And I used to. And then slowly over the years, as the style has changed and habits changed, and I grew older, I stopped. So tonight, here we go. Coat, no tie, because in the interim, as I've gotten older, my shirts won't button in my neck anymore. So I can't wear a tie. I have to go out and get some new shirts with a bigger collar. And then this pin. Pin attracts Drala. Pins. They attract energy. They actually attract power. And so he always encouraged us to wear pins. This is a pin for Vajradhatu. It's actually the Garuda, the bird, the Garuda. The Garuda is a bird which is born flying in the air. It never lands. And then this particular one is having a shield, and that shield represents something that we'll come to. The 4 dignities of Shambhala: tiger, lion, Garuda, and dragon. And that's what are depicted on that red shield in the middle of that pin. So we were encouraged to wear coats and ties. For 22 years, I wore a coat and tie to work. But all of his students were very encouraged to do this. It's really only since the last 22 years that I've devolved into not doing that anymore. So he says, through your relationship to your personal habits, how you handle dressing, eating, drinking, and sleeping, he says clothing provides an armor of discipline which wards off attacks of the setting sun world. Pins do that too. They repel the setting sun. Your clothing can both ward off casualness and invite tremendous dignity, not false dignity, celebration of our humanity. That's really what this is all about. And you don't dress to impress others. You dress for them so that when they look at you, they can enjoy. He says you don't give in to the allure of casualness. Boy, have we ever, is this world? Who wears coats and ties? It's almost an anomaly when you see someone wearing a coat and tie. For the warrior, wearing well-fitting clothing is regarded as wearing a suit of armor. How you dress can actually invoke upliftedness and grace. And so Ellen, who is dressing here too, you can see her when we go to a bigger screen. She dressed up for this too. I haven't done it in so long that my shirts don't fit. Isn't that terrible? Internal Drala also comes out of making a proper relationship to food, taking an interest in your diet, good nutritious meals that you can enjoy preparing and cleaning up after and putting away. You invoke Drala by how you use your mouth altogether. Your mouth is your biggest gateway. Food, drink, words, air, kisses, all kinds of things. The basic idea, you can synchronize your body and your connection to the phenomenal world, to this idea of the world of magic. In other words, you can see all this magic happening around you, perhaps, if you open yourself to it. But have you synchronized yourself to that? Dress is one way of accomplishing that. So is organizing your physical environment, your home. And he says you can see this or its absence in others, the way they hold their tea or coffee cup, smoke cigarettes. This is from the day when we still did that. Run their hands through their hair. And he would demonstrate, when he lifted his teacup to his lips, it was with such attention to detail. You felt he was so conscious and gentle in it. It was a demonstration. It was also the way he was. Everything he did, the way he smoked a cigarette, the way he talked to you, the gestures were gentle, considered, awake, a demonstration for each of us. He says it's about connection or disconnection with the world. When that connection is completely synchronized, then you are experiencing internal Drala. And finally, the third is secret Drala. This is the product of the other two, internal and external, coming together. Because you've created a sacred environment around you, and because you have synchronized your body with it immaculately, you provoke tremendous wakefulness and tremendous nowness in your mind. And this is when you can begin to see this world, each one of us can, as magical, as sacred, as meaningful. Not meaning in the sense that it's going to give you messages about how to make a lot of money on Wall Street, or what to do with your relationship with your significant other. It's meaningful in that things speak to you, what they are. The water of water, the earth of earth. He used to say, you can hold a rock in your hand and you're holding the whole planet. So this tremendous wakefulness, tremendous nowness, has a name. It's called wind horse. In Tibetan, it's lungta. In Chinese, it's feng ma. And in Sanskrit, it's prana. I mention the Chinese because Chinese culture and philosophy have had a tremendous effect, tremendous influence on Shambhala. We'll come to more of that. So he says of wind horse, riding on the energy of basic goodness in your life. Basic goodness is coming present, appreciating oneself and this beautiful world with gentleness and wakefulness. Invoking secret Drala is the experience of raising wind horse, raising a wind of delight and power and riding on it. Such wind can come with great force like a typhoon. And there are exercises which we can learn about how to raise wind horse in your body, because it actually rises up through the central channel that we talk about sometimes when we're purifying the winds, doing that wind exercise in the morning. And the central channel runs from the top of the head, the avaduti, the Brahmaranda up here. The central channel in Sanskrit is called the avaduti, and in Tibetan, the uma. And it runs all the way from here down to 4 finger breadths below your navel through 5 energy centers, chakras. And that's where wind horse primarily lives, and then it spreads out from that into your body when we have it, when we raise it. He says the personal experience of this wind comes as a feeling of being completely and powerfully in the present. Absolutely. That's the only place this magic is available, in the present. The horse aspect is that in spite of the power of this great wind, you also feel stability. You are riding this horse with confidence. You are never swayed by the confusion of life, never swayed by excitement or depression. You ride on the energy of your life. So he says, by invoking the external and internal Drala principles, that's your environment, and then what you do with your body, dress, food, and all the rest, you raise a wind of energy and delight in your life, and you begin to feel natural power and upliftedness manifesting in your existence. This is the essence of Great Eastern Sun. And I'm going to read this last quoting here. So the fruition of invoking secret Drala is that, having raised Windhorse, you experience a state of mind that is free from subconscious gossip, free from hesitation and disbelief. You experience the very moment of your state of mind. It is fresh and youthful, virginal. That very moment is innocent and genuine. It does not contain doubt or disbelief at all, and most of all, it doesn't contain self-doubt. There's no room for that. Secret Drala is experiencing the essence of nowness, the essence of what's real, this. You actually experience being able to connect yourself to the inconceivable vision and wisdom of the cosmic mirror on the spot. This is the cosmic mirror. We're in it, but we just don't notice it because we're so lost in self-doubt, in worry, in imaginary dreams. And he says that this experience of nowness can join together the vastness of primordial wisdom which exists here in this space, in this cosmic mirror, with both the wisdom of past traditions and the realities of contemporary life. All of it comes together in this. You don't even have to think about it. It's right here. This is how to create the warrior's world of sacredness. And now we'll begin to investigate this world more thoroughly. So, Michael.
Okay. So perhaps we could take just a moment to take a good posture, sit up straight. I also have my coat on. And just take a moment to settle into this present moment. Relax into present awareness. And again, in regard to just this experience of Drala that John just talked about, I want to read just 4 lines from a poem by William Blake. To see a world in a grain of sand and a heaven in a wild flower, hold infinity in the palm of your hand and eternity in an hour. I think that's the experience we're talking about. That's what we're able to connect with when we are able to realize our inherent basic goodness. But the chapter that I'm talking about is entitled Overcoming Arrogance. Um, and Trungpa Rinpoche begins by saying that we're discussing the obstacles to invoking Drala, which must be overcome before we can master the disciplines of invoking internal, external, and secret Drala. So a big part of overcoming, understanding what that means, involves the meditation practice in exactly the way John just talked about, that through meditation practice, we're able to cut our speed, drop our agenda, drop our plans, goals, and simply allow ourselves to be in the present moment. We're able to just settle into nowness through the practice of meditation, able to synchronize mind and body. And that's what we've been talking about all along in this book. One of the ways that Trungpa Rinpoche talked about meditation practice in one of the early chapters we read is that through meditation practice we open ourselves to ourselves. And I think the way that we often experience that is that we become increasingly aware of what's happening in our mind. We come back and just see what we're experiencing in a different way, in the greater space of awareness, rather than conventionally, where we're just caught up in whatever we're thinking, feeling, or doing. And this is an important part of overcoming arrogance, because we first of all have to be aware of what we're experiencing before we can do anything about it. And then beyond that, part of overcoming arrogance is understanding exactly what it is and exactly how it manifests in our life, and as well what happens when we are able to overcome arrogance. And that's really what the rest of this chapter is about. When we understand what arrogance is, when we understand how arrogance affects us, and we understand what happens when we're able to let go of our arrogance, that it's much easier for us to overcome or just let go. We're able to, as Trungpa Rinpoche says, we know what to accept and what to reject. So, to begin, he says one of the most important points in invoking Drala is to prepare a ground of gentleness and genuineness, and that in particular, the basic obstacle to gentleness is arrogance. So we could think of gentleness as being kind, open, allowing things to be in the sense of not imposing our agenda on things. Um, it's a sense of mildness and a sense of letting go of aggression, letting go of forcefulness. And he says that where arrogance comes from is from hanging on to the reference point of me and other. In other words, when we are constantly referring back to ourselves and looking for what's in it for us in situations, when we're constantly imposing our judgments and our needs and our desires and our dislikes and so on in situations, then we're not able to be gentle. Um, Beyond that, arrogance has a quality of feeling superior to others or feeling superior in some way, and often gets tied into something that we feel we possess, something that we feel we have that might be better or more than what someone else has. So in all these ways, hanging on to the reference point of me and others, the source of arrogance. And he goes on to say that even if we studied the principles of warriorship, how to rest in nowness, and so on, if we regard these as our personal accomplishment, if they become something that we get puffed up on, if we regard these as some kind of possession that somehow separates us or makes us better than, or any kind of thinking like that, then we've missed the point. Instead of becoming gentle and tamed, we become extremely arrogant. We think I'm a big deal. So instead, being gentle and without arrogance is the Shambhala definition of a gentleman or a gentlewoman. And conventionally, we might think of gentlemen being gentle in terms of not being rude, behavior that's gentle and well trained. But he says that gentleness is not just politeness, or that might be in the external quality to gentleness. But the important thing, and this is a sentence that I think is very important, is that gentleness is consideration. It's showing concern for others. When we show concern for others, we cut through our sense of self-importance. We cut through our constant referencing back to ourselves and actually show some openness and some concern for other people. That's precisely what cuts through um, the constant reference point of me and other, is showing concern for others. So he goes on to say that the purpose of any protocol or manners or discipline that we're taught is to have concern for others, that's the purpose beyond all of that. The point is that if we, as he goes on to say, if we have bad table manners, they upset our neighbors, and in turn our neighbors develop bad table manners, and this in turn upsets others, so that a chain of negativity gets created. And our actions have an impact on others. So, but by showing concern, we cut that chain. We cut the speed, we cut the self-preoccupation that's involved in arrogance. He says good behavior is not meant to build us up so that we can think of ourselves as little princes or princesses, but rather the point of good behavior is to communicate our respect for others. And I underlined respect as well. I think one way we could think of respect in this context is that we take others seriously. For that matter, in terms of invoking external Drala and internal Drala, we take our environment seriously. We take ourselves seriously. We take our practice seriously. We realize that what we do has an impact on the world, and that how we relate to the world has an impact on us, and that the worlds we create around us has an impact on us. So again, environment and having respect for the environment, respect for ourselves, respect and concern for other people is very important. He says we should be concerned about how we behave. And again talks about very simple social rituals like standing up to greet somebody when they come into the room. But he says these rituals are connected with how to have more consideration for others. So it's a way of letting go of our self-referential thinking, our self-centered thinking. And he says these principles of warriorship are based on training ourselves and developing self-control so that we can extend ourselves to others. So again, this concern for others is the underlying attitude, the underlying approach, the underlying feeling that governs our behavior in terms of expressing gentleness. And as well as a practice, showing concern for others helps us develop gentleness because it overcomes our arrogance naturally. He says a society is destroyed from the not from the inside, is destroyed from the inside, sorry, is destroyed from the inside, not by an attack by others. And he says that we might imagine external attacks on us as well. But in reality, the only thing that can destroy us is within us. So again, this is why it's so important to develop self-awareness through the practice of meditation so that we know what we're experiencing. And so that when we experience aggression, when we experience arrogance, we're able to work with that rather than just simply engage in habitual behavior without thinking. This is why it's so important to work with our minds in meditation and post-meditation practice with awareness. He goes on to say, if we have too much arrogance, we destroy our gentleness. And if we destroy gentleness, then we destroy the possibility of being awake. And then we cannot use our intuitive openness to extend ourselves in situations properly. Instead, we generate tremendous aggression. So this is what happens when we give in to speed, as we were just talking about earlier. This is what happens when we give in to our desires, our opinions, our wishes, our plans, without some consideration, some concern for others, without some respect for others, and without some concern and respect for the environment around us as well. We end up generating tremendous aggression. And he goes on to say, aggression desecrates the ground altogether. He says, and he goes on to just describe the pervasiveness with which aggression and arrogance can be destructive. It destroys the ground we're sitting on, the walls around us, the ceilings, the windows, and the doorways. It's just pervasive. We find ourselves in an entire environment of aggression and arrogance. And with that, we have no place to invite the Dralas in. He says, when the room is filled with you and your trip, no sensible person is attracted to that space. Even you aren't, he says. So this is a description of how arrogance affects us, how arrogance causes us to be cut off from any possibility of connecting with the Dralas, of connecting with Windhorse, of connecting with our basic goodness, because we become so self-preoccupied. He says when the environment is stuffy and full of arrogant, self-styled men and women, the Dralas are repelled. So it's an anti-Drala practice, you could say. It pushes away the energy, the sanity, the clarity that we're hoping to develop. And then he says, well, what happens if a warrior, someone who embodies non-aggression, freedom from arrogance, and humbleness walks into the room? He says then the occupants begin to feel funny. They can't have fun in games anymore because there's someone who won't collaborate in their deception. has walked in. And again, we talked again about the importance of living without deception, which is the other thing he talked about in terms of invoking the Dralas, besides gentleness, was genuineness. So this could refer to an actual, as I read this, I thought that this part, what happens when a warrior walks into the room, could also refer to what happens to our state of mind when we begin to wake up, when we begin to experience something of non-aggression, something of freedom from arrogance, something of humbleness, when we begin to experience a moment of openness. And then perhaps the other occupants of our mind feel funny. They can't continue their deception. They can't continue because we begin to develop, we begin to recognize the state of mind, qualities in our being that won't collaborate in the deception. You could think of this again as both an internal or an external situation. In any case, what begins to happen is a different group of people begin to assemble. Gentle people who smile without arrogance or aggression. The air is gentle and fresh. And then there's the possibility that the Dralas will begin to peek through the doors and windows. So the space opens up. We begin to let go. We begin to relax. We begin to allow something in besides just our ego-oriented thinking. And he says, because that atmosphere is without arrogance, the Dralas begin to join in and share their greater sanity. When the warrior students experience an environment where the Dralas are present, where reality is present, where the possibility of sanity is present, they can appreciate the mountains, the clouds, the sky, the sunshine, trees, flowers, the cries and laughter of children. And this is again a sentence that I underlined. That is the main point of invoking Drala, to appreciate reality fully and properly. You could say that from a Shambhala point of view, one aspect of suffering is that we cut ourselves off from these possibilities. Ordinarily, I think we think of suffering as an unfortunate event in our lives. But from this point of view, in fact, the fact that we're not able to experience some kind of openness, some kind of energy, windhorse energy, some kind of Drala, some kind of clarity, some kind of sanity, that we miss out on these qualities in our life, that is also suffering. Anyway, he says arrogant people are so involved with themselves and they're competing so much with others that they won't even look. And when we're totally caught up in arrogance and aggression, it's just like he said, it destroys the possibility of being awake. It desecrates the ground we're sitting on, the walls around us, the ceilings, the windows, and the doorways. And what we're talking about here is letting go of that, allowing ourselves and allowing the situation to open up so that we are able to experience the sacred quality, this awake quality, the clear quality that comes with the experience of Drala. So we begin to really understand why overcoming arrogance is so important and what happens when we don't overcome arrogance, when we give into this desire to put ourselves first, to hang on to and make a big show out of anything that we feel we possess, and when we don't show concern for others, when we don't show some kind of respect for other people and for the environment that we're in. He says when we're fully gentle, without arrogance and without aggression, we see the brilliance of the universe. And he talks about just seeing a grasshopper. And he says little things like that are not boring sights, they're new discoveries. And if we're able to let go of our agenda, let go of our opinions, let go of our preoccupation, that's exactly what happens with the littlest thing to the biggest thing. We can see the world in a grain of sand. We're open to just this present moment, just what we perceive in a very direct, simple way. And that this happens when we're fully gentle, without arrogance and without aggression. He says, in fact, whatever exists in the world is worth experiencing. And he gives another poetic description of snow on pine trees, the last rays of the sun above their deep iron blue foreground. He says, when we begin to see details of that nature, we feel that the Drala principle is there already. We can't ignore the fantastic situations in the phenomenal world. we should actually take the opportunity to seize it on the spot. Invocation of the Drala principle comes from that fascination that we should have, that fascination that we should have, without arrogance. We can appreciate our world, which is so vivid and beautiful. So that's where the chapter ends. And as I say, I think if we really contemplate what he says about what the nature of arrogance is, what becomes available to us when we're able to overcome arrogance and actually develop gentleness toward ourselves and others, how that allows us to open to the world, show concern for others, and allow things to simply be as they are rather than imposing our whatever on things, that we experience the world in exactly that way. Brilliant, vivid, beautiful. And so with that, I think we can have some discussion.
Philip. So I'll jump in. I like these two chapters a lot. It's what we've been thinking about all along, right? With just different words. But the words that I was struck by on these 2 pages, one from each chapter, on page 74, he says, true magic is the magic of reality as it is, communicating with the elements so that in some sense they become one with you. That really does seem to be what it's all about, whether we're talking in terms of leaving our ego behind and becoming one with our universe, which is my universe, your universe, the one universe, or whether we're talking about it in terms here. And in the next chapter, he says the same thing in the same kind of language. And both John and I think both of you teaching tonight have pointed to these sentences. This one is on 83. That is the main point of invoking Drala, to appreciate reality fully and properly. The only difference that I've seen is that this seems a little more action oriented in the sense of invoking Drala as opposed to simply, stripping away ego and revealing Drala or revealing reality. But it's lovely stuff. So thank you, Michael, and thank you, John, for your teaching.
These are all also things we can actually practice. It's actually some very practical instruction in this material. So, all right. Well, I think just if we go through what he recommends in terms of invoking external Drala, that one of the key ideas in the Shambhala teachings is that environment affects our state of mind and environment reflects our state of mind. There's a reciprocal thing that goes on there. So that by taking care of the environment, in a sense, we're also expressing our state of mind and taking care of our state of mind, you could say. There were times when he would say things like, you may come out of meditation practice and think you're going to practice again, but notice that the floor needs sweeping. And it might be more important to sweep the floor. It's a matter of cleaning up because environment does have an effect on us. I think we could consider looking at what are otherwise kind of very conventional, maybe you might even see them as socially stuffy behaviors in terms of manners and so on, as how important it is that our behavior actually be inspired by concern for others. It's not that, that the idea of showing good manners isn't performance or just empty ritual, but that actually could be a way that we do show concern for other people, and uh, that it is a practice of putting others before ourselves.
Yeah, if I could continue. So it's like cleaning up externally and cleaning up internally,
Yes.
stripping away all of this junk that we have that just bogs us down and keeps us blind. Architects have a wonderful concept that is, we have one chance to create our space. And after we've done that, after we've built it, that space will continue to create us as long as we remain there in it. So it's really important to create the right space that we inhabit.
Yeah, and to follow Michael's comment about what we can do, we can dress better. I mean, haven't we, this whole world, the whole culture has become somewhat degraded in that way. We all sort of have bought into that. There's no sense of celebration or in our dress. Eat better, arrange our environments in our homes, with a sense of beauty and of appreciation and of celebration. And of course, not only internal and external Drala, but then our practice of meditation, the cultivation of an open and alert and awake state of mind that is appreciative, not getting caught up so much in our anger and aggression and fear, but coming back and appreciating the people in our world. There are real instructions here. And I'm aware that, Meg or Kurt has their hand up, and then Mark.
I guess I'm just going to be a talking shadow here, but so the what comes up for me about dressing for others and all of that is it sort of breeds a codependence. That's what I think of. Dressing. You're sort of second guessing how you should dress and be and decorate or whatever. That's, I guess it kind of bothered me as I was reading it. It felt at times a little bit elitist, but I'm going to leave that one alone. The other thing I wanted to say was that I wonder if I don't hear anything about passion in any of these readings, or I don't think in the book so far. And so I wonder if Drala is a substitute for passion. It's like a passion that doesn't come from within or come from one's own senses, but comes from something external. So I guess the question is Drala and passion something similar?
Well, it depends on what we mean by passion. If we are referring to the three poisons, then it has to do with the aggrandizement of ego. And I don't think, this is about that, certainly. But if we talk about it in terms of love of life, definitely, that's what this is about. Love and celebration of life. It just depends on what we mean by the word passion. And in the neurotic sense or in an enlightened sense, I think Drala has to do with tremendous appreciation of life that perhaps we've never experienced before, or only experienced in moments or in tastes. And it's about how to cultivate that and develop it. You were going to say, Meg, I'm sorry.
I forgot. Thank you. Appreciate that.
I think you're right about the potential danger of elitism in these teachings. I think that's precisely why the next chapter was about overcoming arrogance. It's precisely a recognition of that possibility, which is, I think, happens if it becomes an empty form or a way of puffing ourselves up, sort of like blowing up a balloon that's really empty on the inside. And But the other thing I was going to say too, in regard to passion, is I also think there's an element of passion to how he talks about perception and just a very direct and immediate experience of things, um, without any kind of barrier or filter. Or at least I hear it that way. But yeah, it depends on how we define it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, thanks for that. So I guess I need to read the next chapter.
As do we all. Mark, you had your hand up. Yeah.
Hi, good evening. I just wanted to be the fly in the ointment, just to talk about nothing and bring up Milarepa, who was living in a cave and again wore tattered rags and ate stinging nettle. I don't know if it was stinging nettle, but I think it's usually. And I just to bring it up, but the whole process with Milarepa, I don't think it really is appropriate for this conversation. He was, I mean, wasn't I shouldn't even be bringing up Milarepa. I'm sorry, but he was being he's kind of proof that anybody is not beyond saving in the Buddhist faith. That you could do all sorts of horrible things, I guess, and still be quite amazing at the end and be fully enlightened. But again, I'm going to shut up now. Thank you.
That's wonderful. And in fact, the Buddha himself had a disciple. His name was something like Anangamala. He was a murderer, and he cut off his victims' fingers and wore them in a necklace around his neck. And then he discovered the Buddha, got enlightened. I guess you can overcome anything.
Thank you.
Steve.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, sort of to Ned's point. I think, um, in terms of, I think dressing and for the purpose of being disciplined, I think it goes in context. And it's easy to, and I think kind of what Michael was touching on this is that with well, it's possible to overdo it. And that's why arrogance was the next bit. I think, like, but it really depends on context. For example, John and Michael, you both look very nice, but would you be as approachable if you were wearing tuxedos right now?
Steve.
Like, so that would be a little too much.
Hold on one second, Steve. I'm having a lot of trouble hearing you. Are other people, Michael, are you hearing him?
Yeah, it's not so good.
The camera, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I basically didn't hear what you've said up to that point.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me? You can hear me now?
I think so. Well,
Okay. I just have to be really super close to the microphone. Sorry.
okay.
I was just saying, I think it's possible to overdo the dressing in some of this discipline stuff. And I think Michael kind of touched on that with, the idea that arrogance is coming in the next chapter, overcoming arrogance. Like, and it just I think part of it, you have to be approachable as a teacher, because I am a teacher. And I have overdressed for class and it wasn't significant or crazy. It was just, basically a shirt and tie. But to my students, that may be unapproachable. So I think it's possible to overdo it. That's kind of what I was adding to the conversation. Like, for example, I was saying that John and Michael, you both look very nice, but if you guys wore tuxedos while doing the teaching, I think you might have, it might have created a separation, even though it would have been, you both would have looked very nice in tuxedos.
I think you're absolutely right. Michael?
I think the point is separation. Yeah. I think you're right too.
Yeah, I guess times change, and what can be an expression of elegance earlier might become an expression of what's the word, arrogance or being.
Being out of touch.
Yeah, you're right. One has to adapt to the times. Good point, Steve.
Deidre.
Hi. So I just have a question. There are times, and sometimes long periods of time, where I see the magic, the beauty of existence. And other times, like currently, where a lot of the time it's very subtle, or even everything seems dull. And that moves me into a tendency towards distraction. So I still, well, I think I've said it. I wonder if anybody has any comment about what might be going on with this dullness, where things don't seem alive. There's no aliveness. Even though I'm present.
I think we go through moods.
Could be what?
Moods. Go through moods of being more or less absorbed in our habitual patterns of thought and emotion. And the more we are absorbed in them, it grays out this world. It dulls our perception of the world. But then it clears. And for people, ordinary people, we're not meditators. We're not on the path. This is something that happens all the time. This constant increase and decrease, erotic patterns of thought that clouds our perception of ourselves and the world. And the more that we practice, I think the more that begins to clear. It's like clearing the clouds.
It doesn't feel like there's clouds. It feels, I've been practicing like a lot of people a long time. And I can go back to the same time Trunkput was teaching. I was a devotee of a Western born realizer, Adi Das Samraj. And when I was a devotee of his, it was before a lot of the controversy and harm, but I was very alive. I was like filled with joy in my communion with him. And I left that Sangha for various reasons. And but I can remember how that particular transmission was so ecstatic. And I don't really expect that I think that in a way it was almost too much. It was out of being in present reality and into almost a kind of state, a kind of a, I can't think of the right word, I'll just say state, that was not the same thing as being in the here and now as is. The here and now as is very obvious to me, very easy to abide as and in, not constantly, but to come back to and come back to. I don't know. Mood, when you said mood, maybe I have an underlying mood accompanying my being as is here and now. Some kind of mood that I haven't become able to work with yet, able to be completely aware of. And maybe that's what it is. It's like it's there, and especially if I'm in a group like this, then I see and feel the, I guess I use the word beauty. It's not a bad word. In Tibetan, they call it Sambhogakaya a lot. That I don't know what else to say about it.
Thank you, Deirdre.
Thank you.
Karen Sue, you had something.
So I think, Deidre, when you were talking about this grayed out feeling, what came to me from my experience is the opposite of simplicity. And with simplicity comes awareness for me. And the opposite of all of that is just my being bombarded with so much that my body and my awareness and my being tends to shut down because it's just too much. Mm-hmm. And so moving back to simplicity, which what just came to mind was that the whole world in a grain of sand makes everything simple. Having that simple awareness allows me to break out of that complete feeling of, I guess, feeling overwhelmed. So,
you know.
Yeah, I think that's good, Karen Sue. When you're talking about meditation practice, that kind of
right.
simplicity. Yeah, and that allows us to rest and to achieve some kind of clarity.
I think that the simplicity is my life, but I think you brought up something in me a little different that I think is it. So in my circumstances in life, is including my daughter who's dying and also has turned against me and bombards me. there's a lot of things that are really, really difficult in my life, especially my daughter. And I think I actually have had an inability to feel them. So I think that what's going on is that I've stuffed certain things. They're too intense to bring to awareness. They're subconscious in a way. And I think that those things have actually overwhelmed me rather than my ordinary life processes and doings have overwhelmed me. I think there's really hard things. My husband died. And I haven't been able to feel these things fully. And I think that's what's impacted my being in a way. I don't know. I hope that makes sense. But that's what came up when she said overwhelmed. I'm overwhelmed with things I can't allow myself to feel. They're too intense.
But you do feel them, and you're describing that now to us. You made it quite clear. And really, every one of us will go through tremendous loss, if we haven't already, culminating in the ultimate loss, which is death, when we lose the whole world. And what this path is about achieving the equanimity and clarity and gentleness of mind, to be able to go through these losses, one kind or another, which constitute our lives. I'm sure there are many people here, in addition to you, Deirdre, who have suffered a lot of loss of one kind or another. And really, that's what the path is all about. How to deal with that and how not to become lost in wishing things were otherwise, which is the very definition of confusion and samsara. Wishing things were otherwise. Was a punctuation mark, I think. And so we're all dealing with that, and by beginning to give up, wishing things were otherwise, we're going to see all of the things that we formerly wished were otherwise, as well as everything else, vividly. It's really a matter of coming back from those dreams of wishing things were otherwise, which are so full of suffering and confusion. That's my feeling about it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're almost out of time here, by the way.
Okay. Before I turn it over to Philip again, I want to see if there's anyone who has something who hasn't spoken yet. No?
Well, thank you. This is real short to Deirdre. I'm sorry for everything that's overwhelming you. One thing that occurred to me that might be helpful, which might also be simple and actionable, and a lot of teachers have recommended this most recently, Urgyen Rinpoche, is to sit in a place where there is vast space in front of you. I see that with a lot of members of this Sangha who choose to meditate outside. And for me personally, it's hugely different if I'm sitting inside or outside. And that might be something you want to try to cut through the, what was the word that you used, the gray fog of your feeling. It may not work, but it's something you could try.
Please come back, Deirdre. So we're just about out of time, and I'd like to put the closing chants. Meg, are you still here? There you are. You want to do that? Is it
Mm,
Jess?
okay.
Thank you.
I have an assistant.
Hmm?
I have an assistant.
Oh, good.
We'll close with a prayer for peace, and then we'll dedicate the merit earned by our practice for the benefit of all sentient beings. By the blessings of enlightened and compassionate ones, by the power of my positive actions of 3 times and my prayers of pure aspiration, may wars, conflicts, epidemics, and all other maladies dissolve in this world, and may the earth
and all who live on this earth
enjoy the abundance of well-being. May all learn to live lovingly with each other. By this merit, may all obtain omniscience. May it defeat the enemy wrongdoing. From the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of samsara, may I free all beings. By the confidence of the golden sun of the great East, may the lotus garden of the radiance wisdom bloom. May the dark ignorance of sentient beings be dispelled. May all beings enjoy profound, brilliant glory.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, John.
Thanks,
Thanks
all.
everyone.
Thank you, Michael.
John and Michael, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you, everybody.
Michael.
Good night.
Night.
Good night. Nice to see you all.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, John.
See you tomorrow.
Vote tonight, Mike.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Michael. That's very
See you
good.
later, Val.
Okay, I'm here. Come and get me.